The most dangerous addiction in your life may not be money, comfort, women, attention, or even pleasure. It may be approval, that quiet, humiliating hunger to be seen, chosen, liked, praised, accepted. The need to feel valuable only after somebody else nods, only after they answer your nods, only after they answer your message, only after they notice your effort, only after they applaud your discipline. And the brutal truth is this: the more you chase validation, the more you train the world to see you as someone who can be controlled by it. The moment you need permission to feel worthy, you are already negotiating away your power. But the moment you stop chasing it, everything begins to change. Your energy changes, your posture changes, your standards rise, your presence hardens, and strangely, the value you begged people to see starts revealing itself without you saying a word. Most men never realize how much of their life is being directed by that hunger. They think they are working hard for success, but secretly they are working hard to be admired. They think they want love, but secretly they want reassurance. They think they want respect, but secretly they are begging not to be ignored. So they over-explain, they overgive, they overperform. They bend a personality into shapes that earn approval from people who are never worthy of defining them in the first place. And slowly, without even noticing, they become strangers to themselves. You see it everywhere. A man changes how he speaks depending on who is in the room. He becomes louder around people he wants to impress, and softer around people he fears. He posts not because he wants to express, but because he wants confirmation. He says yes when he means no, because he wants to stay liked. He stays available because he is scared that distance will make him forgettable. He tolerates disrespect because being tolerated feels safer than being alone. He doesn't build his life from inner command. He builds it from external reaction. That is not power. That is dependency, wearing expensive clothes. And what makes this trap so vicious is that it rarely looks weak from the outside. Sometimes it looks ambitious, sometimes it looks charming, sometimes it looks generous, sometimes it even looks disciplined. But underneath it is the same old fear: if they stop approving of me, who am I? If they don't clap, did I really win? If they don't choose me, do I still matter? A man can have muscles, money, style, and status, and still be a prisoner if his emotional center lives in other people's hands. That is why the shift we are talking about is not a small self-help adjustment. It is a war of identity. It is the difference between living like a beggar in the kingdom of other people's opinions and ruling your own inner territory. It is the difference between reacting and deciding, between performing and becoming, between being managed by applause and being moved by principle. This is where self-respect stops being a phrase and becomes a way of breathing. The world does not reward the man who is starving for approval. It uses him. It studies him. It senses the cracks in his frame. People may smile at him, but they do not deeply respect him. Why? Because need leaks. Need speaks before your mouth opens. Need changes your timing, your eye contact, your boundaries, your silence, your tone. Need makes you rush. Need makes you explain what should be obvious. Need makes you tolerate what should be rejected. Need makes you present your soul like a salesman pitching a product. And nothing kills perceived value faster than a man trying too hard to prove he has it. Real value rises in reverse. It rises when you stop auctioning yourself to random judges. It rises when your peace matters more than your image. It rises when your standards stop bending for temporary approval. It rises when you can walk into a room without asking it to tell you who you are. That does not mean becoming cold, bitter, arrogant, or detached from love. It means becoming anchored. It means your center of gravity moves inward. You no longer need every conversation to confirm your worth. You no longer need every person to understand you. You no longer need every effort to be witnessed in order for it to count. Understand this clearly. Validation is not the same as respect. Validation says, "Tell me I'm enough." Respect says, "I know what I carry." Validation says, "Approve of me so I can breathe." Respect says, I can breathe, even if you misunderstand me. Validation panics when ignored. Respect observes and adjusts. Validation makes noise. Respect holds position. Validation begs for attention. Respect becomes undeniable through consistency. One is emotional dependence. The other is quiet authority. And this is why silence becomes so powerful. The man who stops chasing validation rediscovers the force of not explaining himself to everyone. He stops narrating his intentions before he has executed them. He stops trying to make every doubter comfortable. He stops trying to be emotionally understood by people committed to misunderstanding him. He learns that not every battle deserves his words. Not every opinion deserves his energy. Not every accusation deserves his defense. There is a form of strength that emerges when you are no longer desperate to be correctly perceived by those who have no authority over your path. If this is hitting you hard, it should. Because somewhere in your life, maybe in ways so subtle you barely notice, you have probably been living under the gaze of invisible judges, family, friends, women, social media, colleagues, people from your past, people who don't even think about you as much as you think about their opinion of you. And when a man lives like that, his focus fractures, his discipline weakens, his decisions become polluted. He starts choosing what looks good instead of what builds him. He confuses attention with progress. He confuses being praised with being effective. He confuses being wanted with being valuable. Here's the first hard truth. The need for validation will make you betray yourself in small ways, long before it destroys you in big ones. It won't usually begin with some dramatic collapse. It begins in tiny disloyalties. Laughing when something wasn't funny just to fit in. Agreeing with what you don't believe just to avoid discomfort. Sending the extra message after you already know the energy is off. Boasting the win not because it means something to you, but because you need people to react. Letting disrespect slide because confrontation might cost you acceptance. These moments seem small, but they are not small. Every time you abandon your truth for approval, your nervous system learns a dangerous lesson. My authenticity is negotiable. That is how a man becomes hollow. Not through one catastrophic event, but through repeated compromise. Little self-betrayal here, a little image management there, a little hunger dressed up as confidence. And then one day he wakes up exhausted, resentful, and confused. He has been performing for so long that he can no longer tell the difference between what he truly wants and what he learned gets applause. He is surrounded by noise, but he cannot hear himself. That is why so many men feel restless, even when things look fine on paper. The soul knows when it has been sold in pieces. The second hard truth is even sharper. People rarely value what is desperate for their approval. That may sound cruel, but it is one of the oldest laws of human psychology. Scarcity creates attention. Composure creates intrigue. Boundaries create respect. And emotional self-sufficiency creates gravity. A man who can stand alone without shrinking forces the world to re-evaluate him. Not because he is trying to be mysterious, but because he is not leaking need. He is not reaching out every 5 seconds to be reassured. He is not contorting himself to stay desirable. He is not trying to manipulate people into validating him. His life has weight because it is not centered around being received well. This is where a lot of men get it wrong. They think the answer is to fake indifference, to act detached, to become cold, to play games. But fake detachment is still dependency in disguise because you are still acting for a reaction. You are still hoping your silence will make someone chase you. You are still curating distance as a strategy to receive attention. That is not freedom. That is just a more sophisticated form of need. Real freedom is different. Real freedom is when your silence is not a tactic. It is peace. When your focus is not a performance. It is purpose. When your boundaries are not punishment, they are clarity. The third truth is that your value rises because you stop interrupting it. Most men think they need to manufacture value through explanation, display, and constant proof, but often the deeper problem is that their worth is buried under too much reaching, too much talking, too much pleading. Too much trying to control perception. Like a king who keeps stepping off his throne to argue with every peasant in the street, they dilute their own authority by making themselves too available to every opinion. The more you chase validation, the more you communicate that you do not trust your own substance to speak for itself. Think about the men you naturally respect, not the loudest, not the most theatrical, not the ones constantly trying to be seen. The men who carry weight are usually measured, clear, difficult to manipulate. They are not rushed into proving themselves. They know what they stand for. They don't need every room to confirm it. And because of that, their words land harder when they finally speak. Their attention feels earned. Their presence has edge. They have learned a brutal but liberating principle. When you know who you are, you stop auditioning. If you are ready to stop auditioning, comment the word, enough, not for me, for yourself. Enough bending, enough over-explaining, enough shrinking your standards to keep temporary people comfortable, enough asking the world to stamp your soul with permission. The fourth truth is that the chase for validation destroys focus. You cannot build a disciplined life while emotionally living in the reactions of other people. You cannot become dangerous in the right way while constantly checking whether you are still approved of. Focus requires an unbroken inner line. Validation addiction cuts that line again and again. It makes you look sideways when you should be moving forward. It makes you measure your progress through applause instead of through actual mastery. It makes you abandon slow, meaningful growth for visible, immediate rewards. That is why so many men start strong and finish weak. They can begin a routine, begin a business, begin a transformation, begin a new standard. But when the external reinforcement slows down, they collapse. Why? Because they were not fueled by conviction. They were fueled by response. The gym felt exciting when people noticed. The discipline felt powerful when somebody praised the change. The grind felt meaningful when there was recognition attached to it. But true discipline begins where attention ends. The man who is really evolving keeps going when nobody is watching, because he is not doing it to look transformed. He is doing it because his identity is changing. This is what separates weak men from rebuilt men. Weak men need witnesses. Rebuilt men need alignment. Weak men ask, "Who noticed?" Rebuilt men ask, "Did I keep my word?" Weak men seek emotional payment for every effort. Rebuilt men understand that some of the most valuable work in a man's life will be invisible for a long time. They can tolerate that silence because they are no longer children waiting for a gold star. They are builders, and builders understand that foundations are laid underground. The fifth truth is that your relationships change the moment your self-respect stops being negotiable. When you no longer chase validation, you stop accepting counterfeit connection. You stop confusing attention with loyalty. You stop calling instability chemistry. You stop calling inconsistency mystery. You stop calling emotional crumbs love, because once your worth is not up for public debate, your standards become clean. You are no longer seduced by what shines. You start asking deeper questions. Is this person consistent? Do they honor my presence? Do they bring peace or confusion? Do they respect my boundaries when I stop performing for their approval? This matters because many men lose themselves in the pursuit of being chosen. They don't realize that desperate attachment is just validation addiction inside intimacy. They start tolerating mixed signals, disrespect, manipulation, and emotional gains because being chosen, even poorly, feels safer than standing alone with dignity. But every time you accept less than your standard, you send yourself a message. Being kept is more important than being respected. That message poisons the entire structure of your life. A man who no longer chases validation becomes much harder to deceive. Why? Because manipulation feeds on emotional hunger. If I know you need to feel special, I can control you with selective attention. If I know you need praise, I can lead you with compliments. If I know you are scared of rejection, I can bend your behavior by threatening distance. But when a man has returned to himself, when he has made peace with solitude, when he can stand in silence without panicking, manipulation loses its grip. He does not fold just because somebody withdraws. He does not scramble just because somebody changes tone. He watches, he assesses, he remains centered. That is power. There is a dark psychology to the world that many men refuse to face. People test what they can get away with. They read your boundaries more carefully than your words. They study your tolerance for disrespect. They notice how quickly you abandon yourself to avoid discomfort. This is not cynicism. It is reality, and if you do not understand it, you will continue mistaking politeness for respect and attention for love. The man who stops chasing validation sees more clearly, because his vision is no longer blurred by need. He can detect misalignment early. He can walk away sooner. He can stay silent when silence is stronger than reaction. The sixth truth is that your emotional reactions expose where your value is still outsourced. Pay attention to what shakes you. Pay attention to what ruins your day. Pay attention to what ruins your day. Pay attention to what makes you instantly seek explanation, reassurance, or revenge. These reactions are not random, they are maps. They reveal where your sense of self is still tied to external confirmation. Maybe it is when someone leaves you on red. Maybe it is when somebody else gets recognition. Maybe it is when you feel misunderstood. Maybe it is when you are criticized. Maybe it is when a person you desire becomes cold. Wherever you become frantic, you have found a chain. Most men deal with these chains by pretending not to care, but suppressed weakness is still weakness. The stronger path is to study the reaction without lying about it. Ask yourself, why does this hit so hard? What am I afraid this means about me? What identity am I trying to protect? What approval am I terrified of losing? This is where transformation becomes real, because now you are not just changing behavior, you are extracting false beliefs from the root. You are meeting the insecure part of yourself with truth instead of theatrics. Maybe the truth is that you were trained early to equate approval with safety. Maybe you learned that love had to be earned through performance. Maybe you grew up in an environment where being accepted required suppressing your real self. Maybe every achievement in your life became a way to finally feel worthy. If so, then understand this with compassion and with steel. None of that means you are broken forever, but it does mean you must become conscious. An unconscious man will spend his whole life chasing from wounds he never named. The seventh truth is that solitude is the training ground where your value stops being fictional. If you cannot sit alone without needing to be reassured that you matter, then your confidence is not built yet. It is borrowed. Solitude reveals whether your identity has depth or just decoration. When the phone is quiet, when no one is praising you, when no one is reaching for you, when there is no audience, what remains? Do you still move with purpose? Do you still hold your routine? Do you still create, train, study, build, and sharpen yourself? Or do you collapse into restlessness because without reaction, you no longer feel real? This is why many men fear silence. Silence removes the mirrors. Silence takes away the noise that distracts them from themselves. But silence is also where a stronger self is forged. In silence, you hear your patterns. In silence, you notice your cravings. In silence, you face the possibility that much of what you called ambition was actually a plea to be seen. And if you stay there long enough without escaping, something profound begins to happen. Your nervous system stops begging. Your identity stops shaking. Your standards become less emotional and more structural. You no longer need noise to feel alive. You start feeling powerful because you can hold your own company without disintegrating. That is when your presence changes in public too. Ironically, the man who no longer needs attention often draws more of it, not because he is trying to, but because he is no longer crowding the room with invisible hunger. He is settled. He is deliberate. He is not performing. He listens more carefully. He speaks more precisely. He speaks more precisely. He leaves room, and that room creates tension, weight, and curiosity. You cannot fake that. Presence is what remains when desperation leaves the body. The eighth truth is that standards are the visible shape of self-worth. If you say you value yourself, but you keep entertaining disrespect, inconsistency, and chaos, then your actions are telling the truth, and your words are decoration. The man who stops chasing validation inevitably becomes more selective. not because he thinks he is above people, but because he finally understands the cost of access. He knows that every person, habit, and environment he tolerates is either reinforcing his identity or corroding it. So he stops being casual with his energy. He becomes careful about who gets his time, careful about what enters his mind, careful about what he normalizes, careful about the standards he relaxes in moments of loneliness. Because loneliness is where many men make their worst deals. They go back to what drains them. They answer what should be ignored. They reopen doors that led to disrespect. They lower standards because empty space feels unbearable. But every time you project your standards inside that empty space, you are building a new nervous system. You are proving to yourself that discomfort cannot bribe you into self-betrayal. This is the quiet battlefield most people will never see. No medals, no audience, no music, just you, your impulses, your standards, and your choices. Do you fold because you feel unseen? Do you chase because you feel uncertain? Do you reach because your ego is itchy? Or do you stay with the discomfort long enough for it to transform into strength? This is where self-respect stops being a concept and becomes a weapon. The ninth truth is that work heals what attention never could. When a man stops chasing validation, he suddenly has enormous energy available. Think about how much force has been wasted on overthinking, checking, comparing, posting, proving, worrying, interpreting, waiting, and emotionally reacting. That is a leak. That is life force spilling into places that can never satisfy you for long. But when you reclaim that energy and direct it into craft, training, learning, business, health, discipline, vision, and skill, your value rises not as an illusion, but as a reality. This is one of the most misunderstood parts of the whole transformation. You do not heal the need for validation by chanting affirmations while living an undisciplined life. You heal it by building evidence. Evidence that you can trust yourself. Evidence that you can stay consistent. Evidence that you can carry pain without collapsing. Evidence that you can endure boredom, rejection, and silence without returning to old hunger. Confidence that is not backed by action becomes fantasy. Confidence backed by disciplined repetition becomes identity. That is why the most powerful men are often not the most verbally confident. They are the most internally proven. They have kept promises to themselves in private. They have walked through discomfort without making drama out of it. They have built a relationship with effort that does not depend on applause. They know what they can survive. They know what they can create. They know how to regulate themselves when emotion surges, and because they know that, they do not need to advertise their value every 5 minutes. Their life becomes the proof. If you are still with me, comment the word sovereign, because that is the direction. Not ego, not arrogance. Sovereign. A man who belongs to himself. A man who belongs to himself. A man whose decisions are not purchased by attention. A man whose peace cannot be rented by strangers. The 10th truth is that pain becomes useful once it stops being a performance. Many men secretly use pain as a bid for validation. They want to be seen suffering, understood suffering, praised for enduring, rescued from discomfort. But pain can become something else when you stop turning it outward for sympathy and start turning it inward for instruction. Then every rejection becomes information. Every silence becomes a mirror. Every betrayal becomes a teacher. Every moment of being overlooked becomes a chance to ask, was I serving my path or begging to be chosen? This does not mean becoming emotionless. It means becoming disciplined with emotion. Feel it fully, but do not build your identity around displaying it. Let pain deepen you instead of broadcasting you. Let it refine your standards. Let it expose where you still hand away your center. Let it burn off the childish fantasy that the world is supposed to constantly reassure you, because it will not. And once you stop expecting that, you become stronger than most people will ever understand. There is something almost stoic in this shift, but not in the shallow internet way people talk about stoicism. Not numbness, not pretending nothing hurts. Real strength is not the absence of feeling. It is the refusal to become ruled by feeling. It is the ability to stay aligned with your code, even while disappointment, desire, anger, loneliness, and uncertainty are moving through you. The man who stops chasing validation becomes more emotionally dangerous in the right way because he is no longer easy to steer. He feels deeply, but he is not easily manipulated by what he feels. And make no mistake, this changes your status in every environment. At work, you stop seeking credit and start building competence. People notice the difference. In relationships, you stop negotiating your dignity for temporary closeness. People feel the difference. In friendship, you stop trying to fit where you are merely tolerated. People respond to the difference. In conflict, you stop panicking at misunderstanding. People respect the difference. Even your body reflects it. Less fidgeting, less frantic energy, more stillness, more directness, more economy, more command. Because rising value is not just about how others see you, it is about how coherent you become. A scattered man can never feel truly valuable because he experiences himself as unstable. One day disciplined, next day desperate. One day focused, next day craving attention. One day high standards, next day emotional compromise. That inner inconsistency destroys self-trust. And without self-trust, you will always be tempted to borrow identity from outside sources. So the real mission is coherence. Thought, word, action, standard, and direction align. That is where power gathers. Now here is the uncomfortable part. When you stop chasing validation, some people will not like the new you. Not because you became worse, but because you became harder to control. Some were comfortable with your need. They liked how available you were. They liked how easily guilt moved you. They liked how quickly their silence made you anxious. They liked your over-explaining because it meant they never had to question their own behavior. But the moment you become calmer, clearer, and less reactive, the dynamic changes, and people who benefited from your lack of boundaries may call your growth arrogance. Let them. A man who is rebuilding himself cannot afford to confuse resistance with misalignment. Sometimes people object because you are wrong, but sometimes they object because you are no longer participating in a pattern that served them. Learn the difference. Learn to stay still in the face of projection. Learn to hear criticism without instantly collapsing into self-doubt. Learn to take what is true, discard what is manipulative, and keep moving. That is maturity. That is self-command. You will also notice another strange thing. The more you stop chasing validation, the more your taste changes. Cheap praise starts feeling cheap. Performative environments become exhausting. Empty charisma becomes transparent. You stop being impressed by people who are addicted to being seen. You stop envying noise. You stop mistaking popularity for depth. Why? Because your nervous system is becoming less stimulated by surface and more oriented towards substance. You start craving peace, precision, competence, loyalty, and real character. In other words, your internal market changes, and what you value determines what you build. This is why your rise may feel lonely at first. Not because you are losing something precious, but because you are outgrowing the marketplace of shallow approval. For a while it may feel quiet. Fewer reactions, fewer emotional highs, fewer false connections, more space, more discipline, more truth. That phase can feel brutal if you do not understand it. You may think nothing is happening, but everything is happening. The old self is starving. The new self is learning to breathe. Stay there. Do not rush to fill the silence with old patterns. Do not go back just because the void feels unfamiliar. Do not cheapen your rebuild by asking temporary people to confirm it. Let the process harden. Let the roots go deeper than your need to be witnessed. Let your life become so aligned that whether others applaud or not becomes secondary to the fact that you know exactly what you are becoming. This is where a man becomes truly attractive, truly respected, truly powerful in a grounded way. Not because he is trying to be an alpha cartoon, not because he dominates every room, but because there is no obvious hook in him for the world to grab. He cannot be baited so easily by praise. He cannot be lured so easily by attention. He cannot be weakened so easily by attention. He cannot be weakened so easily by silence. He has emotional insulation. He has inner government. He has standards that do not melt the moment loneliness shows up at the door. And that inner government matters more than any image, because image can be faked, presence can be copied for a while, words can be memorized, but self-command cannot be imitated for long. Eventually, life tests everyone. Rejection, failure, betrayal, delay, isolation, criticism, temptation, success itself. These tests expose whether your value is structural or cosmetic. The man who stopped chasing validation passes those tests differently. He bends less, he sees more clearly, he wastes less energy trying to control what others think. So he has more energy to control what actually matters. If you want a practical code for this shift, it is simple but not easy. Stop explaining yourself to people who have not earned access to your inner world. Stop returning to places that require self-betrayal. Stop measuring your progress by visibility. Stop seeking reassurance where you need standards. Build a life that creates proof. Keep promises in private. Sit in silence without fleeing. Watch your reactions and study them like a strategist. Protect your focus like a kingdom under siege. And when loneliness tries to bribe you into weakness, remember that many men lose their entire future in moments where they just wanted to feel chosen. Choose yourself first, not in the shallow indulgent sense, in the disciplined sense, the sacred sense, the warrior sense. Choose the version of you that is harder to manipulate. Choose the standard that costs comfort but protects dignity. Choose the routine that builds self-trust. Choose the silence that reveals truth. Choose the boundary that disappoints others but keeps your soul intact. Choose the path that does not need applause to remain meaningful. That is how value rises, not through display, through decision. And once you understand this, you will never be able to move through life the same way again. You will start noticing how much of the world runs on insecurity, how much behavior is driven by the fear of being unseen, how many conversations are performances, how many relationships are negotiations of unmet needs, how many ambitions are cries for worthiness. This awareness can make you cynical if you are careless. Do not let it. Let it make you precise. Let it make you compassionate without becoming naive. Let it make you strong without becoming hard in the wrong way. Because the final truth is this: the moment you stop chasing validation, your value rises, not simply because others begin to see you differently, but because you stop living beneath yourself. You stop kneeling before opinions that were never meant to rule you. You stop producing your life to a series of reactions. You stop outsourcing your identity. You stop bleeding energy into emotional begging, and in that reclaimed energy, something ancient wakes up: self-respect, discipline, sovereignty, a cleaner kind of masculinity, not loud, not childish, not performative, just real. Real enough to walk away from what weakens you, real enough to stay silent when speaking would only expose need, real enough to work in the dark without applause, real enough to let people misunderstand you while you keep building, real enough to be kind without being soft in your standards, real enough to feel pain without becoming ruled by it, real enough to know that being alone with your code is better than being celebrated for a version of yourself that isn't true. That is the man you are supposed to become, not a man addicted to being liked, a man devoted to being solid, not a man who chases every mirror hoping one finally says you matter. A man who lives in such alignment that mirrors lose authority, not a man who needs the room, a man who brings his own atmosphere, not a man who folds under uncertainty, a man who can stand in pressure and still remain himself. So from this point on, watch what you chase, watch what you explain, watch what you tolerate, watch where your emotions beg for permission. Your future is hidden inside those patterns. Every day you refuse to chase empty validation, you reclaim a piece of yourself. Every time you choose standards over approval, your frame gets stronger. Every time you keep working without witnesses, your identity gets heavier. Every time you stay calm when the old you would have begged, argued, posted, explained, or spiraled, your value rises. And one day, without fanfare, you will notice the difference. You will walk differently, speak differently, decide differently. You will stop checking who noticed. You will stop asking whether you are enough. You will stop trying to force people to see what they were too blind to recognize. You will simply become more grounded, more exact, more disciplined, more dangerous in the right sense, more at peace, more difficult to manipulate, more internally free. That is the rise. Not louder, not flashier, not more desperate, just deeper, stronger, cleaner, unshakable. If you feel that shift happening in you, then do not leave this as emotion. Turn it into action. Like the video if you are done begging for permission. Subscribe if you are building a life that does not need applause to stay meaningful. And comment "I choose self-respect" if you are done chasing validation and ready to become the man whose value rises in silence, in discipline, and in truth.